Hi, I'm Darnell with Wheel and Recipes, and this is my review of Breville's Smart Oven Air Fryer Pro. So I'm going to get it unboxed and bring you right back. Alright, so now that everything's unboxed, I want to show you the power cord and plug, and this cord is definitely longer than 3 feet, so this is a long cord, and it's a 3-prong grounded plug. And the cooker is 1800 watts, so you definitely don't want to have anything else on the same circuit because you don't want to blow the circuit. And it has 13 cooking functions, and the temperature ranges are between 80 degrees Fahrenheit to 480 degrees Fahrenheit. That depends on function. And the time ranges go up to 72 hours. Of course, that also depends on the function that you use. Now, dimensions are 21.4 inches in width by 17.3 inches in depth by 12.7 inches in height. And they say that you can roast a whole 14-pound turkey in this, or you can toast like 9 slices of bread, or you can do a 13-inch pizza. And they mentioned that you should give it at least 4 inches of space on the sides and at least 6 inches of space on the top. And it weighs 38.89 pounds. Now, something interesting here, they mentioned that this cooker includes a memory chip that collects how it's used. And if you send this cooker into Breville for service, they'll read that chip, and basically it gives them information about how you're using it. They say it's for internal quality and future design purposes, and they say the chip doesn't collect any personal information, but keep in mind there's a chip in here and it's collecting data, and if you send it in, they're going to read it. But this cooker doesn't have any sort of Wi-Fi function or anything to emit information out, but just if you send it in, then they read it. Now, as I get deeper into this review, I do want to mention that in the video description there's the timestamps feature. There's also the chapters feature that you can use to go to the section of your choice if this video runs into a part that is not to your liking. Also, here on the Wave of Recipes YouTube channel, there are nearly 1,000 different videos covering over 100 countertop cookers, so there's a lot here for you to enjoy. Alright, so giving you a closer up view of the cooker, I just want to show you the accessories really quick. It comes with a pizza pan, and it's a 13-inch pizza pan. Also comes with an air fry rack, and this air fry rack is basically your dehydrator rack as well. So it's double duty for that. It has a roasting pan, and you can put this broiling rack in the roasting pan when you want to do broiling. And it comes with 2 wire racks. So I've got one here in my hand. I've got another one inside there. So you can do like 2-layer cooking. They do mention if you do 2-layer cooking that rack levels 3 and 7 or 4 and 8 are best for most things. That's going to give you the best results. Although if you're doing like dehydration or air frying, and it's not stuff that drips, you don't have to worry about using like different rack levels. You can put up to 4 of the air fry / dehydrator racks in here and do that simultaneously. Even though they give you 1, you'd have to buy 3 more. Now, when I say rack levels 3 and 7 or 4 and 8, you have to keep in mind that this cooker only has 1, 2, 3, 4 actual rail holders. So the way that they get up to like 8 rack levels is that you have to like turn the rack this way for one level, and then you got to turn it the other way for the other level. And when you have the door closed, you can see basically like this is on rack level 6, and then if I flip it over, it would show on rack level 5. So that's how you kind of work the different rack levels that they talk about. Now I just want to show you the manual, and I will say they don't make manuals like this anymore, in my opinion. For other types of newer cookers, I don't think anybody does. This one has like 100 pages in multiple languages. It's about 30 pages in English, maybe a little more than 30 pages in English. Yeah, it's like 32 in English because they give you a page for notes. But this manual goes into a lot of in-depth detail. I wish everybody made manuals like this still, but this is a type of manual that was made back in the day that, like I said, doesn't really get made anymore for cookers that I've been seeing coming out lately. So now I'm going to show you around the cooker. So if we turn it here on this side, we see we've just got basically air vents there. And if we turn it around on the opposite side, we see that we have air vents. We also have the hump from the air fan there. Now if we turn around to the back, you see the back here, it's got a hump. There's no cord management, but they do have bumpers to make sure you don't like bump it into the wall, and ventage all around the back. And I also wanted to show you the auto eject feature for the rack. If you have it on this third rack level up, the third rack level up they consider the 3-4 rack level depending on the way that you have the rack flipped. When you open and you have a rack on that level, it auto ejects out like part way. It doesn't do that on the other rack levels, but keep that in mind that you have the auto eject on this rack level. Alright, so now I want to take you inside to get a look at things in here real deep. And we see over here on the right side, there's that air fry fan there. I'm not able to see any like heating coil on that air fry fan. In the back, you don't have anything, and over here on the left, you've got that light up there. And they say that light is replaceable, and the manual gives detailed instructions for how to replace that light. We see down bottom here that there are 2 heating coils, and we see up top there are 4 heating coils up top. In the back there, there's a little short bar. It looks like a huge ambient probe over there in the back, but that gives you a view of things on the inside. Now it's time to do some independent measurements. So we're just going to do height first. And we see that the height is about 12 inches going across the top here. I'm seeing about 21 inches this way. Front to back, I'll do from the bumper in the back to the end of the handle. I'm seeing about 17 inches that way. And when I open up inside, we see inside here is under 17 inches, like about 16 and a half. We're going from the true inside, about 16 and a half there. Doing the height, this is just general full height is about 8 inches. You can basically measure from the rack levels here, you know, if you're interested in how much room you get from each rack level. You can pause the video and do that. From front to back, I'm seeing 13 inches, no, 12 and a half inches without the hump. When I leverage that hump, I get about 14 inches. Now I'm going to measure a couple of accessories. So we see with the roast pan here, you get 13 inches on the interior, even though it is a full almost 15 inches long. For here this way, it's 9 inches, even though it's a almost 11 inches, but not quite. For the wire rack, it goes a full 16 and a half inches, because you've got to get your roast rack on the wire rack to, you know, basically put it in. And then this way, it's just a little under a foot that way, a little under 12 inches. Alright, so now we've got the Breville next to the Ninja French Door Premier, and a full review of this is here on the channel. Now, you can see that obviously the Breville is just a bigger overall cooker than the French Door Premier, and also the Breville comes with more accessories than the French Door Premier. And you see inside, you know, you just get a lot more room in the Breville than you do in the French Door Premier. And now I've got the Breville next to Gourmia French Door 9-slice digital air fryer oven. Full review of this is also here on the channel. And we see that the Breville is looking a bit wider, but I think it's because of this display being on the side, whereas the Gourmia has the controls on the door. And so when we open up inside of both of them, we see that the height of both is, let's see, it looks like the Breville maybe just a tad, but then again the bottom of the Gourmia is lower than the Breville, so it's not like one is really more taller than the other. Maybe the Gourmia is a little bigger on the height because the Breville stands up more, so I think the Gourmia may be taller on the height. And we see the width of the two. The rack for the Breville is not able to go into the Gourmia because it's too wide. And basically front to back, I can tell you the Breville's looking a little bigger front to back than the Gourmia by just a little bit. So the Breville does look like it has, you know, able to fit more front to back, and side to side it's got a wider rack. So that just gives you a comparison of these two. So now I'm going to do an initial plug-in. So we plug it in, the display lights up and does some flashing for us. Alright, I hope that you can get a good look at the display now, but if you can't, then I'll just talk you through things. And basically I wanted to start off by talking about the Fahrenheit and Celsius button, because they do have a button. I'm going to go to a option that has like temperature. You can press the Fahrenheit and Celsius button and basically easy quick switch between Fahrenheit and Celsius for your temperature, so that's very nice. Now if you want to control beeps and the sound level of that, you hold the Fahrenheit and Celsius button for a few seconds and it goes to this mode here, and then you can press again and then it's like no sound or a little sound or louder sound, and that's how you control the volume. Then you can just press any other button to get out of that mode. So I think I've just turned off my volume, which is what I wanted to do here. Now I'm going to talk about all of the functions that it has, and I want to mention that some of the functions have features like frozen, convection, or a rotate reminder, but it really depends on the function whether or not it has that. And the rotate reminder is really for 2-rack cooking, to know when to swap the racks around is what the purpose of the reminder is for this one. And it has a convection button that can change between none, convection, or super convection depending on your preferred fan speed for the functions that allow that. And many of the functions go up to 72 hours, and it basically depends on temperature. When you're using a lower temperature, you're allowed more time. When you're using a higher temperature, you're allowed less time. So now I want to talk about the toast function here. Basically when you're on toast, you use rack level 4. You have to use that based on the guide that's on the oven door. And you use that with no preheat, and you can do darkness between 1 to 7, and you can do slice options between 1 to 9. Now how you do that, once you're in the toast option, you turn the temperature to do your darkness of the toast, and you use your time to adjust the number of slices like that. And you're supposed to put the bread as close to the center as possible for the best results. Now I'm going to go to the next function here, because this is the select knob to select your different functions. You have your start stop here, you have your temperature, your time that I mentioned. Now I want to talk about the bagel function. It's very similar to toast, but a few differences. You use rack position 4, it has no preheat, it has darkness levels between 1 to 7, and it has slices between 1 to 10. And they say that you should face the bagel slice halves upward, and this is basically, the bagel setting is designed for the top to be crispier than the bottom. And if you want the top and bottom of bagels to be equal as far as the toasting, then you should use the toast function. Now I want to talk about the broil function. Go to broil here. So on the broil function, you get rack positions 1 or 2. Use rack position 1 or 2, and there's no preheat. The heat options are low, medium, and high. I don't know what temperature low, medium, and high are. And you get a 20-minute max. And they say you should put the broil rack into the roasting pan and then put that on the wire rack. Next is the bake function, and with the bake function you use rack position 6. It has a preheat, and you can go between 120 to 480 degrees Fahrenheit for up to 72 hours. And some things like brownies and pastries, they say, may do better on rack level 5. And next I want to talk about the roast function. And with the roast function, you put things on rack position 6. It has a preheat, and you can go between 120 to 480 degrees Fahrenheit for up to 72 hours. Next is the warm function. With the warm function, you use rack position that can vary. You can, since you're warming things up, put where you feel best. And There's no preheat, and they say that it goes from 120 degrees Fahrenheit to 480 degrees Fahrenheit for 72 hours maximum. Next is the pizza function. With the pizza function, you use rack position 7. It has a preheat. Your temperature ranges are between 120 degrees Fahrenheit to 480 degrees Fahrenheit, and it has a 1 hour max for pizza. Next is the proof function. With the proof function, you use rack position 7, no preheat. It goes between 80 degrees to 100 degrees Fahrenheit for up to 2 hours. Next is the air fry function. With the air fry function, you use rack position 3. It has a preheat, and the temperature ranges are 120 degrees Fahrenheit to 480 degrees Fahrenheit for a maximum of 1 hour. And the air fry function defaults to super convection, and if you have food that will drip, they say that you should use the roast pan to air fry instead of the air fry rack. They're not saying to put the air fry rack underneath on a lower level. They're saying to actually air fry in the roast pan if you're air frying and have food that will drip. Next is the reheat function, and with the reheat function, the rack position may vary. There's no preheat, and the temperature ranges are 120 degrees Fahrenheit to 480 degrees Fahrenheit for a 2 hour max. Next is the cookies function, and with the cookies function, you use rack level 5. It has a preheat. Temperature ranges are 120 degrees Fahrenheit to 480 degrees Fahrenheit for a 1 hour max. Cookies uses convection by default. Air fry uses super convection by default. Next is the slow cook function, and with slow cook, you use rack position 8. It has a preheat. The settings for temperature are low or high. I don't know what low or high are for slow cook, and that goes up to 72 hour max. And they say don't use cookware that's over 13 pounds when empty. Next is the dehydrate function, and with dehydrate you use rack position 3, has no preheat. The temperature ranges are between 86 degrees Fahrenheit to 176 Fahrenheit for up to 72 hours. And dehydrate uses super convection by default. They recommend parchment paper if the food may stain the basket. And here they recommend using the roast pan underneath the basket if things are going to drip when you're doing dehydrate. So a little difference there in how you manage things with drippings between air fry and dehydrate. You have your light button here so that you can turn your light on and off. And then there is the phase cook button. And let me talk about how the phase cook works. Basically, it can be used to do back-to-back functions when you want to change between cooking functions. And it can be used for broil, bake, roast, warm, and pizza. And basically you start out by pressing the phase cook button, and you see that it starts with phase 1. You select whatever function you want. So let's say you were going to roast something, let's say 400 for an hour, if that's what you want to do. Then you hit the phase cook button again, it goes to phase 2. You select your function, let's say you want to broil it after you roasted it. After you've got everything in, you can also use the select as a button, and once you hit select, everything is locked in. You can hit start from that point and it'll do your 2-phase cook. And after you're basically locked in with your phases, let's say you want to cancel out, you just hit the phase cook button again and then again, and you're out of that phase cook situation. Also, there's a basically frozen button for frozen foods. You can press that to, it gives things like a little boost. That doesn't work for dehydrate though. But if we go up to like air fry, we see that the frozen button works. And you can press that frozen button again to get out of that frozen mode. So now I'm going to do a temperature test, and I've got an ambient probe here on the rack. I'm using rack level 3, which is the rack for air frying. And I've got the readout here for the temperature to keep track of things. I'm going to do my temperature test on air fry on the highest temperature, and I'm going to use that basically as my burn off as well. But they do recommend to do the burn off in this manner. They say that you should put it on pizza and do 20 minutes at the default settings for pizza with the cooker totally empty. So I'm going a little off the normal path that you're supposed to do for the burn off. And they say that the burn off is to remove protective substances on the heating elements. So now I'm turning to the air fry function, and we got it there. Temperature, I'm going up to the max of 480. Time, I'm just going to put it on even 30, but I guess I'll have to let it run for at least 20 to do proper burn off. But going to hit start, and it does have a preheat, so it's showing preheating and flashing right now. Alright, we see that the cooker has started its countdown. Since I turned the sound off, it didn't do any beeping. I guess I need to turn the beeping back on so I'm aware when the preheat is done. But we see the temperature is only reading at 382 when we got things set to 480. So it ends the preheat before it does reach the actual temperature, unless, since their ambient probe is way in the back there up higher, I still can't see how they would be getting like nearly 100-degree difference though, even with their ambient probe up in the back. So it seems to stop the preheat early. It's like maybe like a jump starter type of preheat. But I'm going to let things run for about 10 minutes just to see how things go here. Alright, so it's been going for 10 minutes here, and what I've noticed is it took about 4 minutes of the cook time before it reached 480 over here, and it's been teetering up to about 500 and then back down to about the 480-ish range. So it is keeping the temp, and it's trying to regulate itself to stay pretty well in the desired temperature range. And so now I'm just going to do some feeling around, see how hot things are. Here on the table, things are not hot. We're good. Here on top, it's hot. Glass, hot. Glass is always hot on any cooker. If it's got glass window, it's always usually hot. Here on the side, it's pretty warm. I don't want to keep my hand there. Over on this side, yeah, it's a little hot over there in the back. Yeah, I mean, don't touch this thing. Don't, have anybody near where they may bump into this thing. It's a bit too warm to be near, if you know what I'm saying. Now I'm doing a sound decibel check. And reading at 49, that's pretty quiet. I mean, you can hear it, but it's not too loud. It's quieter than a basket air fryer, and so it's not bad. Now I've got a thermal imaging camera here. So we see the front is, very hot. Don't want to mess around with that. Talking over 300 there. Over here on the side, things are looking, and it could be the reflection that's impacting things too, of course, but things are looking like they're not as hot as the front. It's showing that right on the center that it's saying it's about 100. It felt like maybe it's a little hotter than that. The air vents are looking pretty hot there. Looking around the back, things are very hot around the back. Checking here on the opposite side, things are in some areas looking pretty hot there. Now I'm going over the top, and over the top things are looking, over 100 degrees, so kind of hot. It feels, like I said, it feels even hotter than that to the touch, but this gives you a thermal imaging view of things. Now I want to test if opening the door will auto pause, and it doesn't. Things are still running. Well, time paused. Actually, time did pause. So opening the door paused time, but it didn't stop the air fry fan. Now I'm going to test trying to make changes to the settings on the fly, see what happens with that. So if I turn down the 175, it seems to quickly take that. If I turn the time, yeah, it quickly changes the time, so the time and temp are easy to adjust on the fly. So now I'm just going to check what happens if I hit the start stop button. It totally kills the cook. So let's see, I'm on air fry. I'm just going to go ahead and restart it. It's still holding at 475. And I'm going to hit the select button. Let's see what happens. And it says basically rotate remind. That activated the rotate reminder. So that doesn't pause it. So you can open the door to pause, but the fan doesn't stop. But there's no way to stop the fan from running if you need to get in there. You can just stop the timer by opening the door. And we see that it remembered the time and temperature setting after I stopped it. But I'm just going to check if we unplug it and plug it back in. Will it remember what we had earlier? So yes, it does remember that. It remembers the 475 30 minutes. So even after an unplug, and I'm just going to continue with my burn off, but a little extra beeping there. But it remembers your changes, and maybe it's that microchip in there. It remembers the changes even after you turn things off and unplug. And I want to mention as I finish my burn off here, when you unplug and plug back in, it doesn't remember your sound setting. So the sound for mine did revert back to the loud sound setting after I plugged it back in, but it does remember your time and temperature settings after you plug it back in. Alright, so now I'm going to do a toast test. I've got one buttered slice and one unbuttered slice of my whole wheat spelt light sourdough bread. A video of how I make it is here on the channel. And so I'm going to go ahead and put things in. The cooker is still warm from earlier burn off, but we're going to go with it. So I'm going to put these two slices in the center, but trying to avoid having any butter melt on the heating elements. So I need to move this one up a bit because once I close the door, the rack's going to slide back some. Let's see how that goes. That might be okay. Let's pull it up a little bit more just to make sure we center things well. Alright, so I think that's pretty good. So I'm going up to toast. Since things are already warm, maybe I won't need as much time, but this bread is more resilient than your store-bought stuff. I have to make that clear. So it's not going to get as brown, but it may get some browning to show us, you know, how dark things get. So I'm going to do 6 with 2 slices, hit start, and it just goes into its, you know, time and temperature setting for that. It may regulate itself because it knows it's already hot, but we'll see what we get from this. Alright, let me get the bread out of here. And Breville's always seem to toast my bread a little light even when I use a higher setting. It seems to be true with this one as well. But you see that this slice, the unbuttered slice, got a little toasting at the top, a little toasting on the back. The buttered slice, we got the butter fully melted. Then on the back here, we got some, you know, soak through. So it is able to make toast, but usually Breville's are made for store-bought bread and not homemade bread for their toasting. This one doesn't have the a bit more button like some other Breville's, so you can't add a bit more. You could change the time on the fly though if you want to after you start it. Alright, so now I'm going to bake some apple cinnamon oat bars. I've got them here in a cast iron pan using my apple cinnamon oat bars recipe. I'll flash the ingredients on the screen. And so what I got to do first is to warm things up, and I'm just going to turn things over to the bake function. I've got the rack on the proper rack level for baking, and I'm going to up temperature to 350. The time, 20 minutes should do, so I'm going to put it on 20 minutes and hit start. Once things are done preheating, it should beep, and then we'll get it on in. Alright, time to get it in. We got things in, and we'll just let things cook for a while and I'll bring you back. Alright, the time is up. See what's going on here. Pull it out slightly and feel. Yes, they are done. They feel good and done. So just let you look at them real quick. It's able to do some decent baking of oat bars. So now I've got my almond flour chocolate chip cookie dough here from my almond flour chocolate chip cookies recipe, and I'll flash the ingredients on the screen. And so what we have to do is get things warmed up. I don't know a way to skip the preheat, but for these you really don't need to preheat if you're my air fryer oven doesn't have preheat, but I'm going to leave it at 350, 20 minutes, and we're going to go ahead and hit start there, and we'll get them in once the preheat is done. I've got the rack on the cookies rack level. Alright, get them going in. We'll just let it cook for a while. I'll bring you back. Alright, I'm going to check these out. It's been 12 minutes, but that coconut syrup is starting to cook a little hard. So yeah, they need more time. Just wanted to check them out. Probably should have used maple syrup instead of coconut syrup, because maple syrup doesn't cook as hard or get as brown as quickly. But we'll let these continue, and I'll bring you back. Alright, they've been going for 17 minutes now. I want to check them again real quick. See if just perhaps, yeah, we're good. They're done. So they got a little extra browning. I think that was the coconut syrup that did it. But we see that the cookies turned out well. Ones in the back really, didn't get much more than the front. I think over here on the side, where the air fry fan is where things are the lightest. So I guess if you want to turn for the sake of that fan, lightening things on that side, you can, but they turned out decent. Alright, so here I have a 1 pound swordfish fillet. I've put some extra light olive oil on it. Don't confuse that with other forms of olive oil. But extra light olive oil, some lemon pepper seasoning, and some Old Bay seasoning. And I'm going to air fry it here. So I've got the rack on the air fry rack level. And I'm going to turn things up to, well, down to air fry. And I'm going to leave it at 30 minutes, but I'm going to bring the temp down to a cool 350. And we'll see how that goes. I've got the iGrill basically tracking temperature for me. And I've used my steamer to basically defrost the fish. But you see the meat temperature is 48 degrees, so it's still pretty cool. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit start and let that preheat run. Once the preheat is done, we'll get it on in. Alright, get it on in. Close it on up. And we'll let things cook for a while. Alright, so this has been cooking for almost 30 minutes. The meat temperature is at 122. And if you're wondering why I'm doing it this way, is because I want to do it the way the manufacturer recommends, even though I've done plenty of fish in the air fry basket with the pan underneath. I know it very well. But I just wanted to do this one the way they recommend for the sake of this review. So I need to add more time. So I'm going to add, let's see, I'll move out 10 minutes. And we'll just see how things go from this point, but I'll bring you back in a little bit. Alright, we're at 142 after almost 40 minutes of cooking. I'm going to push the time out so that it basically will be 45 minutes total. And, maybe it's the pan, maybe it's the thickness of the meat or what have you, but we're going to do it this way, and we're almost done. I know about carryover, but I'm going to cook it all the way. And so I'm hoping to bring you back probably in less than 5 minutes, but I'll bring you back. Alright, 145. Just at about the 40-minute mark, maybe some seconds over the 40-minute mark, but we're done and we're at temp. I got that auto pop out. And try and get the meat thermometer out of here. Kind of yanking that out. Alright, so the meat doesn't look bad at all for being in there that long. You see, hope you can get a good look at it. And there you go. Alright, since the cooker takes a while doing its cool down fan, I'm going to talk to you about the cleaning here. And for cleaning, basically you want to unplug it, let it cool down, and then after that they recommend that you not put anything in a dishwasher for longer life. So I'll wash everything by hand. I have found in my experience, even with cookers where they say wash everything by hand, usually the air fry basket goes just fine in a dishwasher. I haven't had one yet where I put it on top rack of the dishwasher and it deteriorated or had problems. But that's just my experience with air fry baskets in general. as far as the metal air fry baskets and air fryer ovens. I'm not talking about the baskets in the pull-out basket air fryers, but those metal baskets like this one has in air fryer ovens is what I'm speaking of. But anyway, they recommend wash everything by hand for prolonged life. And so basically you can use like a warm soapy dishcloth and wipe things clean, then a wet one to wipe things off, and then dry things off after that. And don't use anything abrasive. And of course you don't want to put the main unit in water, don't submerge that. Now as far as the warranty, it's pretty interesting because it comes with a 2-year limited warranty, which is good, but it also comes with a 5-year warranty on the glass. So that's a pretty unique warranty, and I think that basically speaks to the cooker, not being one that was just released last week. I think, all these newer ones, like I said, the manual not the same, design's not the same, and the warranties are not the same. I mean, they're still like, companies like Cuisinart still giving pretty long ones. They're an exception, but here they have like a 5-year on glass defects. That, I don't think you're going to get a new cooker with that type of coverage anymore, but that's just my opinion. And so, I hope that you did like this review, and so I've, put it through some tests here. We see the toast did fine. I mean, it did Breville level toasting. It's a little softer on toasting because they tweaked theirs to basically work for store-bought bread instead of homemade bread. And so that's how it goes with the Brevilles on toasting. And for the baking, it did the oat bars just fine. It did the almond flour chocolate chip cookies just fine. For the fish, because of their recommendation of how they say that you should air fry things, maybe that slowed it up, or maybe it was just such a large cut of fish that, it took that long. But either way, at 350, which is a lower setting of temperature, it looked like it came out pretty juicy, and so that's all good. So there's nothing in this video that's sponsored, nothing given to me. I prefer things that way. And so there's lots of ways to help the channel in the video description, also on my blog, superwaveovenrecipes.com. Again, that's superwaveovenrecipes.com, and that's been around way before I was on YouTube. But anyway, in the video description here on the Wave Oven Recipes YouTube channel, there are ways such as links to many different shops that you know well in the video description. Also the shop icon. If you see the shop icon, you click that, you can buy this cooker or others, and that helps the channel there through affiliate relationships. Also, if you like this review, you can use the super thanks to make a donation if you so choose. And there are many free ways to help the channel as well, such as the hype button. If you're watching this within the first 7 days of release, you can pull out your mobile device, pull up this video, and hit the hype button up to 3 times. That helps get this out to more people. Also, you can always give this video a thumbs up. You can share the video with a friend. You can leave your comments, subscribe, hit that notification icon, and good eating.